Welcome to the Kick It Open podcast, where we celebrate bold moves and reveal the strategies shaping success in the wealth management industry. Our goal? To inspire you to kick the doors open on your personal success. I'm your host, Shelby Nicholl. I am so excited for today's episode. I'm joined by Kristin, Harad. She is a business development coach and a consultant for seasoned entrepreneurs. She focuses on coaching advisors with $100 million practices and above, and especially working with those enterprise teams to reach growth goals. And today we are talking about how to align your business strategy so that you can unlock your success. Kristin, welcome to the pod.
Thanks so much for having me, Shelby. It's exciting to be here. I know we've had some energizing conversations. I'm glad we're finally going to hit record.
Yeah, me too. So, for our listeners, tell us all a little bit more about your background and your journey in working with financial advisors.
Sure. I entered this industry by starting my own RIA back in 2005. But prior to that, I had about 14 years of experience working in corporate marketing, primarily with financial brands and personal finance. So I worked for a large ad agency in New York where Chase Bank was my client. Then I moved to California and I worked in-house at Charles Schwab in their ad agency. So that taught me quite a lot about our industry and the advice business. And I also ended up working with Visa here in California as well, which was pretty interesting in terms of just seeing how that whole world works with member banks and trying to get banks onto a credit card. And my entire background there was all in marketing strategy, brand development, activation, retention, loyalty, the full spectrum of marketing. So at some point, though, I started thinking, I really don't feel like I am making an impact on individual people. And you can try to convince yourself that is the case when you're selling, doing ads for a product to try to get someone to use a card that has points on it, and they'll trade those points in for prizes that you're helping them. And you could be. But it really felt like, as someone who is very driven as a helping personality, it wasn't matching what I needed. So I had concurrently been working with a personal financial advisor, a wonderful woman who was helping my husband and me with our personal financial plan. And I remember meeting with her going, well, what is this called? This is what I want to do. I want to be the. So she talked to me about how, her journey and how to become, how to study for the CFP and get the experience. And that worked quite well because at the time I was actually training to become a life coach because I was going to just go, I just want to help people achieve their life dreams. And then when I thought about it, and I had been working with her around our money, and I looked at all of my history around working with personal finance, I was like, oh, how cool, essentially as many of us know, the profession of being a financial advisor is ultimately about helping people fulfill their life goals with the enablement of their money to help them, right? So it's the conversation around that I think is really interesting. So I started my own RIA. I'd left corporate America. I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. I just knew I was done and I needed to do something entrepreneurial on my own. So I did that. I grew that firm. I brought on some other advisors. It was going really well, and advisors were calling me and asking me, how did you do that? What did you do? And I would talk to them about my marketing strategies and what went on there. And that, long story short, evolved into a coaching business that happened on the side. And over time, I realized that my strength was actually in coaching advisors and entrepreneurial advisors in marketing. So I transitioned over to that a while back, and now I've been working exclusively with anywhere from a solo advisor up to an enterprise firm with multiple advisors. So it's been quite a fun journey. I have many decades under my belt now, which is actually a really fun place to be.
It is. I love your journey too, because I have a lot of similarities, right? And that I came up marketing and client experience as well. I never had the guts though that you did to go and be a financial advisor. I think probably because I was told pretty early on that I wasn't good with money. And so it sort of like steered me away from it.
Right.
Those things can happen. But I love how you have just sort of followed the string throughout your career, right? I'm interested in marketing. I'm interested in life coaching. Oh, I'm interested in finance. Let's bring that all together. And then, oh gosh, I actually love this other part more. Let's do that full time, right?
Right. And it's interesting just to see how experiences build on themselves, and you start to be, I've said this on other podcasts, but you're the sum of your experience, and it's very clear, and it's really exciting when you feel like you're standing kind of in the right place, right, at the right time. So
yes.
It's fun. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Fun. It feels like then it's very natural for you to be connected around marketing and advisor and growth and purpose. That seems like the center point of all of your coaching. And why is that alignment of marketing and the advisor experience and purpose? Why is that so crucial? And like, what happens when that's not happening?
Well, I think when it's not happening and people are lost, right? Advisors are lost, leadership is lost in a firm. It's like, where are we going? What are we doing? You start to throw the spaghetti on the wall. You are trying the latest, greatest tactics. And I find that if we can take a step back, whether you're a solo advisor kind of looking at your own business, or, when we have a bigger team or, a firm with leadership who's trying to bring in next generation advisors or teach or lead their advisory teams for business development and growth, which is what most people come to me for. They say, we want to grow. What do we do? And then we have to talk about prioritization. And you can't prioritize if you don't have a unified vision of where you're going, a unified message, a strong purpose and positioning behind what you're doing. Because imagine being a player on that team being like, okay, well, I want to talk about what we do and how we solve problems, but I'm making it up for myself, So it's like, how can we get everybody on the same page? And not to say they have to be robotically reading the script, right? But it's, how do you make sure that everyone on the team is kind of bringing the energy in the direction we want it to go?
What does that look like when it is all aligned? Like, what are some of the practical ways that we can see that alignment?
Oh, that's a great question. So when I'm working with, the leadership of teams and I'm coming in, I think it's most important that you have to be clear on a few things. So there's a few foundational areas. There's the company brand strategy, which I know sometimes people go, I don't want to think about it. But if you're especially if you're a larger firm, you may already have a very, a very strong brand behind you, whether it's like a Raymond James or an LPL. And so you might have a lot of that clear already and a lot of resources behind you. But for a firm that's, marketing under their own name or creating their own brand, you have to be clear on, what's the firm's personality? How do you communicate? What does that mean in terms of the way you show up in the world as the firm, not just as the individuals, but the aggregate? What's your positioning? What's your place in the market? Where do you, if someone were shopping down the main street of your town and they were walking into your store, what would that store be? What are they able to buy? What do they do? What makes them different from the neighbor, right? And, who are the clients that you serve? What are their profiles? What are their problems? What are the pain points? How do you solve them? And, what are your values as a firm? What do you stand for? So when you wrap all those things together, you have your brand strategy, and that's something that can then inform messaging. And messaging is one of the biggest areas where I see advisors tripping up, is just really trying to convey value in a way that makes sense. And the more you can speak in a unified voice over and over and over again, it becomes, it it's a positive impact on the brand, right? It boosts the brand, it boosts everyone. And while we want advisors to be able to be flexible to express their individuality, we want to reinforce the overarching message of the firm. So if you're a leader in that position, you want to be crystal clear on that element. I have more, I can give a few more examples if that works for you.
Yeah, that would be great.
There's also the client journey. So I like to have the leadership team or advisors take a look and standardize the process for how you deliver service. And usually it is that way, but no one has bothered to write it down or articulate it or put it in a package. You know, you can spell out the client journey and brand it, you know, and call it the like path to freedom process or whatever it might be, you know, retirement success process. And you have a branded process that then an advisor can explain to a client. Because, you know, when potential clients are coming in and they're meeting with you, one of the hardest parts of business development is to explain how it works, right? How do we work with prospective clients? And when you can get that down on a one-page overview where an advisor can pull it out and be like, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, here's how it works. You probably haven't worked with an advisor before, or if you probably haven't worked with an advisor like us before, but here's how it goes. And it helps advisors feel really confident in their conversations and frankly results in better conversion rates because you're able to kind of very clearly articulate, here's what's happening, here's what's coming up next, and here's what you can expect.
Yes, I think that's so important because it feels as if otherwise the client would have anxiety wondering what's next.
Yeah. And I think, and just to imagine, and I remember this from when I had my firm, I thought it seemed bizarre to actually have to be like, we'll meet once and then we'll meet again and then we'll meet a third time across this like 6-month period, right? But in fact, many times clients have not worked with an advisor before. And if they have, maybe they just had their money with someone and they got their like sample portfolio and someone sends them a statement, or, they may not have the same experience that you offer. And so when you can demystify that, it takes all the stress out of this uncertainty. People are craving certainty and they're doing the best they can to make a decision around something extraordinarily important in their life. Of like their life's work and savings.
Yes.
And the more you can make them feel comfortable and realize that there is a process, there is something happening there that they can trust in, the better off they'll be.
It's a confidence booster and a way for them to regulate their own anxiety at that point. I want to go back just real quickly to messaging because I think there's two things that even for myself that I struggle with as an entrepreneur. One is I feel like I'm saying the same words all the time. And then the second is, and by the way, isn't everybody else sick of that too? Right? Like that's what's going through my head.
Right. That's the fear, right?
That's the fear, right? Are they tired of me saying those same words also? Because I feel like I'm saying them all the time. So how do I balance that and also being consistent? And then the second piece of messaging is how do you divide the enterprise from the founder? So those are my two questions about messaging.
Okay. Well, the first thing about messaging is, sadly, people aren't really paying attention to your messaging until they hear it many times. So they have to hear it at least 7 times for it to even resonate. And let me just tell you, I've been doing this teaching and training of marketing. The first class I did was in 2010. I'm still saying the same things, new technology, new solutions, new outcomes, but the fundamental strategies. Like, so sometimes when I feel the same way. I feel like I say positioning, people, personality over and over again. Well, that's because that's what it's important. And people, until they have a reason for it to be important to them, they're probably ignoring it. / it's not registering, or maybe they have a sense of maybe you do this or that. But you're actually helping people by consistently reiterating and saying similar messages over and over again so they can take it in.
So don't be afraid to continue to repeat. Just repeat
it. Oh, please.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so surprising because you think you said it once. You're like, well, do I need to say it again? Didn't you already hear this?
Yeah.
But then it's in fact, oh, okay. Try to think of a new way to say it, but it's still ultimately you should have your key messages. These are the things we're reiterating. These are pain points we deal with. These are common problems among people. Because then people feel like, okay, good, that I'm not unique in that way. Other people have these problems too. Okay, good. Like you help people feel part of the group too, which is really, it feels less isolating. But in terms of helping advisors, like this is a big problem because so many, of the firms I've worked with now, we're started by the rainmaker who, built the firm, networked like crazy, cold called, did all the things, build up their name, people. And so then clients naturally want to work with them because the firm might even be named after them. And, as new advisors come in or the next generation or your lead advisors are coming up and you have other partners and other people, ultimately you do need to separate the founder from the brand. And I like to do that. Again, it depends on how that shows up. If the founder's name is not necessarily in the name of the firm, it's a little easier, but ultimately you want to kind of pull in the history of that person and the strengths of what they brought to the firm while also adapting for what's new and future and coming and what you as a firm are about. And this is where being clear on values helps because you can start to shape messaging around, as a firm, we value this, and you can start to make the conversation about the values and the company versus the person in charge. And you can start to distance that messaging on the website. And sort of tactically things you can do is like, have different advisors contribute content to the website, have different advisors showing up on, guest podcasting or doing a video, or if there's an interview with the media, don't have the founder do it, have someone else on the team do it. Like, so you start to spread the wealth and reinforce that the company as a whole is here to help these people solve this problem so they can achieve an outcome. And it's not that individual person.
I think that's really interesting, that idea of spreading the wealth as well, because we want to bring up the next generation advisor as well and make them successful in the future. We want to position them well so they can take over the book of business potentially and serve those clients in a way where he or she has authority with those clients. And so
right.
I see what you're doing there in terms of, really spreading that wealth.
Are you a financial advisor ready for a big leap? Making the decision to leave your firm, whether it's a broker-dealer or an RIA, can feel like stepping into the unknown. Muriel Consulting provides personalized, unbiased support to help you navigate transformational career moves with confidence and confidentiality. Schedule a discovery call at murielconsulting.com. MURIEL consulting.com.
What happens when the messaging doesn't seem to be working? So I've aligned it with my purpose. I've aligned it with a process. It's everything I want it to be. But I'm not getting my conversions, or, it doesn't seem to be driving results. What do I do then?
That it can be tricky, and that's where it is helpful to have some form of, I'll say coaching. I know that's self-serving since I'm a coach, but some sort of a grouping of like bringing together of advisors, whether it's a team meeting like on Mondays where you get together and kind of talk about what are the obstacles, what's happening, where are we going. Know that messaging takes time, and even any kind of marketing or sales or business development outreach that you're doing takes time to kick in. It takes repetition, and ultimately you have to find the style that works for you. And what may work really well for your colleague may not work as well for you. And so the good thing about coming together and talking as a group is you can start to share what's working, what are the, what kind of conversations are you having, what kind of messaging is working for various people on the team, because usually it takes time to nuance and move things around, and kind of go, okay, this is what I'm comfortable with, this is how I speak best. So this can be, it's a little bit of trial and error, but it's also really important to help to make sure that you as an advisor find the style that fits for you. And I think this is where leadership can really help, either bringing in someone who can have those conversations or, facilitate those conversations themselves. Making sure that advisors are excited and energized about the type of outreach that they're doing. Maybe there's an advisor who's super excited to have a podcast, and another one down the way who's like, I just like to get out in the community and volunteer and network, and that's the way that works best for me. There's many different ways that you can create growth and get out in the world, and so you have to find something that meshes with your personality and your way of being and things like that.
Yeah, it really has to play to that advisor's strengths is what I hear you saying, right? Like,
absolutely.
The ability is that the message or what the firm delivers, the value that the firm delivers is consistent. Mm-hmm. And then the way we're going to show that up, if you like events, then you can go to events. And if I like podcasts, then I can do the podcast. But I'm still going to reiterate that same messaging, that same overarching value.
Right. And that gets back to kind of another foundation item that I hadn't yet touched on. But, the firm leadership should be providing resources to support advisors. They should make sure that the company assets, whether it's the website or collateral or social media profiles or any kind of advertising or communications they're sending out, making sure that's reinforcing the company messaging so that the advisors on the team, it's serving to support them and boost the brand and help advisors when they're out there because there's more awareness created. And then being able to provide training and tools and templates for advisors to be able to do their individual outreach, to do the types of things they need to do while staying aligned. So, you can create welcome kits that an advisor can send out or personalize. You can create email templates that they can personalize. It's making sure that they have those things available to them so that they are able to succeed and don't have to keep recreating the wheel every time and trying to think, how would I say this message? You can give them tools and training around that to make it work.
Oh, that's great. And it seems as if, again, that just reiterates that consistency that we're trying for while also giving some structure and authenticity. If a firm wanted to sort of like reset its growth engine, where do you think that they start? Like, what's the first step towards building that strategy that's going to work? Yeah,
that's really a great question. And I suppose it depends on how much you've developed the high level thing, like I said, that the brand, the positioning, the people, the profiles, the personality, the values. Assuming you have a good sense at that high level, then what I like to do is take a look at what I call the business development ecosystem, which is essentially mapped around the client journey, and I like to break it down. And so I recommend that, the leadership team and advisors get together and they look and they go, okay, let's look at the client journey, look at all the way through from how do people initially find out about us? What are they seeing or hearing? And is it what we want that to be? And if not, we need to change that. And then as you go through the client journey, so they're hearing about you, they're reaching out, they're contacting you. What is the experience when they submit a form or make a phone call in? What does the pre-screening look like in your sales process? What does that first meeting look like? What does that second meeting look like? What is the messaging in there? So looking at all of the parts of this system, right? Any of the point along the way where someone can decide that they want to continue working with you. That carries you all the way through to that first onboarding, to that first year, to that second year, to that third year. Look at that entire experience and say, okay, where is it that we are reinforcing our messaging? Where is it that we're reinforcing who we are and what we stand for? Where is it that we fall short? And take a look at it that way. And then what tools, technology, templates, people do we need in place to help us at those various points to be able to enable success and growth from our advisors? Because usually we're going to find a spot in that whole cycle that is falling short, and it may not be, we need to get more people in the funnel. We need to get the word out to more people. It might be something in your onboarding experience that people are dropping out, or they're not feeling cared for, or they're not feeling ready to refer a friend, whatever it might be. But it's kind of taking that step back and getting the firm level view, and then digging into what the priorities are of which can have the most impact.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about doing that on kind of a regular basis, right? And because you can't attack all of it at once, and so
no, not at all.
If you do a kind of a project, if you will, to attack portions of it, this quarter we're going to focus on, the pre-meeting portion, and next quarter we're going to focus on the first meeting and how do we really dial in that client experience, et cetera.
Right.
Is that what you recommend to people?
Yeah, that's 100% right. We can't do this all at once. Yeah, it's it's progress. We're making small steps along the way, right? It's stepping back and saying, all right, which things. There's a few things I like to look at. Which things can we implement quickly? We can get a quick win. So if there's some quick wins, take those off the table. Which ones are going to have the biggest impact, the highest ROI? Obviously, you might prioritize those ahead of others. And then which things are advisors or team members excited about, right? Where's their interest or energy? Because then it's more likely to get done. So we can take the combination of those three things and start to prioritize, all right, where does it make sense to focus first, and then do that. And then, like you said, like maybe you're regrouping quarterly. When I'm working with the team, I like to regroup with the leadership quarterly, and then coach the advisors monthly along the way to see where we're getting stuck and what's happening. But it's, again, you can't do it all at once. So you got to take it in bites.
Yes. It's interesting that just that cadence, and also just the blocking and tackling of that as well. But what I loved about what you said is that you said, I'm going to go with where the energy is. And that feels like such a carryover from your life coaching days.
Yeah, it's true.
Of just following that energy, because it is so much better if it's aligned for the individual.
Yeah, and I think, ultimately it has to resonate with the end client as well. But usually those come together because the energy attracts and you're creating that. And it usually provides energy because it works, right? And so people start doing it and they start seeing results and they get excited, and then it keeps going. So it's hard. It's a slog to try to get someone to write a blog post who has no interest whatsoever in doing that. So...
Well, that is a really great statement to then talk about AI a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, and pivot, if you do have to write one, yes, introducing the AI tools and how to use AI. And you and I have talked about this. It's such an interesting area to learn. And I think I'm signed up for about 10 or 12 different trials on various AI platforms to try to find which ones are the best. So that may have to be another episode, but the very basics are like you getting comfortable with and using ChatGPT or Claude or any of the Perplexity, any of the tools that can help you write or solve problems or ask questions. All of those things are really, really helpful.
Yes, I will share, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. I have trained an AI on a GPT on my voice, and so I took all my writings that I was doing before AI was out and all my writing and plug them in. And so it's, the Shelby voice, so to speak. And that has been a huge time saver for me. I do something similarly on the podcast of, creating my discussion guides and things like that for the podcast. What are some of your most recommended use cases for advisors?
That's a great question. One really good one is obviously any kind of writing. So
Yes.
if you of course, strip out any client data or anything, but you could, if you have a client write an email with a request and you need to respond, you can put the email copy in ChatGPT and say, I need to respond to this and reiterate, our company value and help solve their problem. And then you put it in there and it'll give you examples of that. You can also create a project, for instance, much like you did in ChatGPT, where you load in, we have a brand strategy document. Here's the URL to our website. Here's our strategy document for the year, our one-page business plan. Whatever details, like you said, here's blog posts we've written. Here's a summary of our avatar, of our audience. The more you can put in there, the better. And then you can go into that project and say, I'm trying to name our proprietary process, review all of the brand documents, take a look at our website, and help me come up with 10 names. And then you go through that,
That's a good one. I have not used the project function as much yet. I built my own GPT, which I guess is similar, but I haven't done
I think
project.
It's similar concept. I just know in ChatGPT, if you say project, you can load up different and have different folders and do different things. It's the same concept of it's all the resource in one area, because then you can go back and say, we're going to add a tagline, review all of the document, keeping it in line with the documentation I've given you and what you know about us so far. Help me come up with a 3-word tagline, And so that's okay. Those are smaller. That's smaller, but I use it for, blog ideas or outlines. Interestingly, I've been trying out ones where you take a blog and give the URL to, it wasn't ChatGPT, but I used something called Pictory, Pictory, and it created a video off of the blog content that's used stock photography. You can pick the voice you want for the voiceover. You can edit the script of the voiceover. You can edit which stock photography they pull in. It was fascinating. And again, I think it's only going to get better, but I'm trying to play around just to see, because another use is, you record. So let's say we record this podcast. I am certain that for promotion, you can take the recording. The platform we use here probably does that, where it'll pull clips out for you and pull out a lot of AI behind the podcast promotion for sure, getting the show notes and getting the clips and the summaries and things like that.
Absolutely.
Just anywhere you can accelerate use, and also just to ask it to help you. Sometimes if you don't know exactly, you say, I have this problem. How can you help me?
Yes.
And then it starts to prompt you with questions, and you can work through the problem, which I find really interesting.
It's so interesting. I watched Masterclass. It was huge a few years ago, where you can
those
subscribe.
Are really interesting. Yes,
they're really good, and they have a 3-part series on AI that I really recommend, because it kind of tells you a little bit more about the structure of AI, how they train the tools, etc. But it also talks about how to get the best results out of it. And part of it is making it a collaborator. And you can say, I want you to serve as a collaborator. Give me some thoughts. Give me some questions that you want to know from me on X topic, so that you can give me a better result. You can also raise the stakes on it, and you can say, if I don't get the right answer, the Starship Enterprise is going to explode. And then it will give you a more correct answer. It's crazy. Oh
my God.
It's so wild.
Crazy.
It's so wild, but it's just because it's trying to get it out of its normal box of thinking and out to the edges of what it knows and what it has been trained on. And so that's
that's extreme. I love that. I've heard definitely that you can go back and say, okay, this was a great first draft, now improve it.
Yes.
And you can keep it that simple and be like, okay. I mean, I usually give more direction than that, but the basic, if I don't know what to say, I'll say just, okay, improve it. Because I guess it's trying to learn, which is very interesting.
It's trying to learn you, and it's trying to make you happy. That's what it also said. It's like its fundamental goal is to make you happy. So it thrives on praise, and it thrives on you saying, make it better, make it better.
I know. I'm like, come on, do better. No.
Yeah, right.
But that is pretty interesting. I find it, the whole AI world fascinating to learn. I think advisors need to be playing around with it. I have a sticky note on my desk that says, how can AI help me today? Just to push myself with trying to figure out how to use the tool in a way to free up more of my time. Because when you do get it working for you in whatever way where you need help, it is unbelievable, the time saving. I mean, anyone who's done it knows that it's like exponentially time saving in terms of time saving. So
absolutely. I'm so glad we got a chance to talk about AI and your thoughts there. I know.
I'm like, we could keep going. I ask every advisor. So if you have a call with me, I will be like saying, how do you use AI? And if you aren't, what do you think about? Well, I'll give you ideas around it, but I'm also equally as curious and loving to learn about what everyone's favorite new tool is. So
yes,
we certainly
same
don't
here.
have all the answers yet, that's for sure.
Okay, well, I would love to have just a few last minute kind of quick hit questions for you. I do this with all of our guests. And then at the end, I also want to ask you and have you share how people can find you. But let's do 5 quick hit questions real quickly. All right.
Okay.
What's your favorite app on your phone right now?
Easy, my health app. I track my steps, I track my weight, I track my blood pressure, I track all of it. I look every day frequently.
I love that. So, all right. What's one thing that you've always wanted to learn but you haven't had the chance to yet?
I want to learn how to write a fiction, like mystery novel. I want to learn about story arc, and I know a little bit about that, but character development, all new, and like all the elements that go into it. And I just bought a book to start learning about that just because it fascinates me.
Oh, that is fascinating. I have a good friend who wrote a book. It'll come out this year. But her experience of writing it and then essentially rewriting it, absolutely fascinating. You might enjoy her newsletter. I'll send it to you.
Okay,
all right.
Thank you.
What's one piece of business advice that you swear by?
I'll say progress over perfection.
That came up a lot today. What's a book or a podcast that you'd recommend to financial advisors?
My favorite right now is All It Takes Is a Goal by John Acuff, Acuff. I read the book and now I listen to his podcast, and it's really, really helpful for people looking to set goals and achieve things in all areas of their life.
Oh, fantastic. I'll have to look for that. And then what's the best piece of leadership advice that you share with your clients?
Oh, leadership advice. I think that as a leader, if you're clear on where you're going, you have clear vision of where you're headed, it's really important, one, that you have that, and two, that you communicate what that is to your team so that they're there to help you and enable you. And if they don't know where it is they're going or that you as a firm are going, it's hard for them to get excited and join in. So align everyone behind the vision and good things will come.
That's great advice. Tell us how people can find you and what they should come to you for.
Oh, great question. Well, you can come to fulladvisorcoaching.com. That has you can see my podcast, my blog. There's content. There's some free downloads. If you want to have a conversation with me, you can click the request a call button in the upper right corner. You can also sign up for our mailing list, and I send out, when we have new content, we have new things going on, and it's kind of an all-in-one resource there. Definitely, if you're interested in saying, we have growth goals, we're not sure how to reach them, whether you're a solo advisor looking for some business development coaching or you're the leader of a larger firm and you're like, I got to get my team on track, or somewhere in between. I do coaching at multiple levels, and I'd love to have a conversation.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. This has been Such a great discussion.
That was really fun. Thanks for having me. I'm really enjoying it. I love chatting with you, and I know we could go for days. So thank you so much for having me.
We could. What is a door that you're working to kick open right now? Just in the theme of the podcast.
This is a great question. I am super excited about working with teams these days. So I've done so much work with solo advisors, with the firm leadership, but now the thing that I'm very excited about and I've been able to do over the past year or two is starting to work with teams of advisors, because I think when you bring groups together and they can learn from each other as well as from the coach or the expert, it's really exciting for me to see what comes out of that and just how much more powerful that is. So I'm directing a whole lot more effort that way now. And so that's my latest focus on where I'm kicking.
Oh, I love it. I love it. For all of our listeners, I really hope this has inspired you to think about the steps that you're taking every day to achieve your highest ambitions. We are kicking doors open every single day, and thanks for being part of the journey. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Kick It Open podcast. The Kick It Open podcast is hosted and developed by Muriel Network. Kick It Open is produced by Shelby Nicholl, edited by Aaron Sherman, graphic design by John Gallagher. If you found today's podcast valuable, please help us out by subscribing and sharing with your friends. Just click that little plus sign or the follow button wherever you get your podcasts.